Hey, everybody. It's another Big Daddy and Friends. And I'll tell you, I'm happy to have our next guest because he is a very dear friend and has been very supportive in a lot of the things that I've been doing. And I support him. And, it's kind of funny. When we first met, everyone's his agent and also his shoe rep were both like, hey, you got to meet so-and-so. You got to meet so-and-so. He's in your backyard. He married a Long Island girl. So it's a natural fit. All right. So I go to meet him. And all of a sudden this guy walks in. And I'm like, man, look at the size of his arms. What? He ain't no defensive back. I'm like, okay, well, I can't wait to hear this story. But, it's probably one of the greatest introductions I ever had. And with no further ado, I want to welcome Erik Coleman to Big Daddy and Friends. What's up, Erik?
Hey, what's up, Rich, man? First of all, congratulations on your show. It's great to be able to come chat with you, man. It's been a long time because of all the craziness that's going on in the world right now. We got to connect through the internet right now. But yeah, that was it was funny, when you tell that story about, I was with Doug Hendrickson, was my agent, Mike Newsom was my Nike guy, and they used to always say, man, I know you're living on Long Island, you got to meet Big Daddy, I'm like, man, who is this Big Daddy guy? And I met someone else and said, man, you guys got to meet up. So we linked up that day, and we've been tight since, man. It's been a pleasure to know you, to get to know you, to work with you. Do a lot of charitable stuff together, so it's been a great relationship.
Be styled together. I mean, we had that sax thing going on there for a minute, and that was great. We got to formulate that whole new plan, which we'll have that conversation off the air. But anyway, it's funny how relationships start and how they last, or how you work at them, they last. And I always tell people that. You start at A, and then you go to B, then you go to C, and then it works its way to longevity. I mean, I'll say this: one of the best meals I've ever had has been at your mother-in-law's house. I love Nona's food, so let's get this out of the way first. Please send them all, your mother-in-law, Sabrina, and all the kids, my best and hello. And so it's unfortunate we're dealing with these times right now because this is how we communicate. A year ago, you would have said Zoom, I would have been like, what? Gazoo, the Jeff. And now this is like the new norm. So it is what it is, and we're all dealing with it. So anyway, I think what a lot of the viewers and listeners that watch and listen to this show, they want to know, who is Erik Coleman? Tell me a little bit about, or tell all of us, I kind of know, but what led you to football, the love of the game, and give a little bit of the progression, because, we all know you go to grade school, you go to high school, you go to college, you go to pros. Tell us a little bit about that whole journey.
Well, let me see. I was raised in Spokane, Washington. We had some great athletes come out of there. John Stockton and Mark Rippon and things like that. But my growing up was a different path. Had a tough time growing up. I always had a great childhood, right? Grew up with a lot of family, my brothers, my sisters, and everything. But as you get older, you start to realize that there's some issues going on in the house, and one of those issues was drug addiction. That played a part in my upbringing. My parents struggled, with that, and led to them getting divorced. We went through a lot of tough times growing up, but I always had sports, and I used to go to the East Central Community Center. I started off at the Martin Luther King Center, going after school. That's where I learned how to play football, baseball. Played basketball for the YMCA through them, and then went to the East Central Community Center. And that was just what my friends and I did. We played sports. So I grew up playing football, basketball, baseball, and it was just something that we did. It was just a part of life. After school, do your homework, go to sports. And, eventually, as you grow up, I played flag football growing up, right? I get into middle school, and that's when you start playing tackle football in my town. And I was in seventh grade. I think I was 102 pounds, really small. And, they were like, you got to play tackle football. And I put on my pads. I was one of the smallest guys out there, and so contact wasn't really my favorite thing. I didn't like to tackle. I just wanted to say what?
If they only knew now.
Yeah, and I was one of the smaller guys, and I played quarterback and some cornerback, and I played whatever they put me at. And then I started to grow up. As a freshman, I played football. I was 135 pounds. They wouldn't let me play running back. That was my main position, and so they made me go play cornerback. So I played cornerback the best I could, and as I grew up, playing football, basketball, and baseball, I was really good at basketball. That was like my favorite sport. I was explosive. I had fun playing it, but I'm only 5'10", 5'11", so I'm not saying that's an excuse. There's been plenty of guys who made it pro who are my height, but I wasn't that good. My skills weren't that good where that could, make up for that. But and then going through high school, I started to shine a little bit in football. Got a chance to go to the Washington State University football camp. Went up there, played really well, broke my ribs up there, got MVP of the camp, and then later on they offered me a scholarship. And, I went on to play there. And, it was funny because during those times where I was getting recruited by different colleges, my mom was in prison. So I would have to go by myself, to all these visits and try to figure out where should I go in my future. And before I started getting scholarship offers, I was like dead set on being a Marine and then going into the FBI. I was like, I want to go into law enforcement. That was like my thing. I think those guys are the real superheroes, and I still do. But I went to Washington State, and as I was at Washington State, some of the guys that I played with started going to the NFL. Lamont Thompson was the first guy that I knew. He was a couple years older than me. He was drafted in the second round to the Cincinnati Bengals. And, I looked at it and I said, if Lamont could go to the NFL, now I know he's a lot better than me. Lamont was one of the all-time Pac-12 greats. He's the all-time leader in the interceptions in the Pac-12. He's a great, but, I'm not that far behind him. So I can maybe do this. And then the next year, my buddy Marcus Trufant got drafted number 11 overall. And, I looked at my roommate Hamza Abdullah, and we were like, man, if we want to go pro, we got to start working hard. We got to start, not hanging out as much. We got to start staying after practice, trying to get better. And we really focused on bettering ourselves as players. And, I was fortunate enough to get drafted in the 5th round to the Jets in a great situation. And, that's where my career kicked off, and it was a beautiful thing.
So you answered the question. It's funny. I was going to ask you a question was, if you wouldn't have done football, what would have been your next career path? Yeah,
I always just, for some reason, just loved, like the Marines and, being a police officer and just doing the right thing. I don't know what it is about it. I just have a ton of respect for law enforcement, for people who serve our country. And, it was just something that I knew that I had to get out of my town. I knew I had to get out of the situation that I was in. And I knew that, going into, the arms, going into the Marines or something like that, I'd be able to travel the world. I'd be able to experience some things in life. And that was really my goal. And even when I went into Washington State, I was a criminal justice major at the beginning. I played as a true freshman, so the workload kind of got too heavy, and I had to switch my major. But, that was something that I was really interested in.
So now you leave football, you're done playing football, and now you have this TV radio career. What made you go that angle?
That's funny. When I was playing, I started dating my wife. And my wife, her family owns restaurants. She was running one of the restaurants. And we were at dinner after one of my games. And she's like, this is great, but what are you doing after football? And I looked at her like, what do you mean? Like, I'm making good money. I'm this. Like, I'm not going to work after I'm done playing football. And, I said that. We kind of like not argued, but, we went back and forth. And it made me think, like, what am I going to do after I'm done playing football? And when I went down to Atlanta and I signed down there. She gave me the idea. Sabrina told me, you should ask one of the reporters if you can go do an internship at their news network. So I started going to the NBC affiliate down there, WXIA, on my off days, on Tuesdays. Tuesday nights, I would go down there, put on a suit, and they would put me at the desk. They would teach me how to sit in front of a camera, help me read a teleprompter, write stories. And I was doing all these things on my off days. I eventually got my own show where I would interview my teammates in the locker room. It was a lighthearted show. And after I was done playing football, my wife was like, Eric, you should go into broadcasting. And I fought her about it as well, because I was kind of bitter at football. Not a lot of people know this, but when you stop playing football, for 95% of us, you get fired, right? And so my last job was in Detroit. I got released, and I was just bitter towards the game of football. I didn't want anything to do with it. And one day the Jets called me and they said, hey, Eric, you want to come to SNY and come do this show, this Jets pregame show. I said, yeah, I'll give it a try. And I went there and I came home and my wife saw the look in my eyes. She goes, you liked it, didn't you? And so I couldn't deny that I had, really loved talking about the game of football. And that was really the start. It kind of ignited a fire in me to continue to pursue it. And, and thankfully I'm still in it and being able to talk about the sport that I love.
I understand that feeling 100%. I went through that in regards to, here I am helping build a network, which was Fox Business Network, where I started. Then all of a sudden, hey, you get the mic in your hand, and I'm like, okay, hey, I'm Big Daddy. So what are you doing at the Super Bowl? It's kind of. And at first I was kind of like, oh, wow, this is all right. But then all of a sudden, like a light went off and I'm like, wow, I enjoy this. And I've been doing it now since 2008 and it's been a lot of fun. And now here I am doing podcasts, which I never thought I would do. But I'm 100% into it and I practice it. I'm learning it more. And I'm even trying to see a speech coach once a week because I want to be able to, I got to get rid of, the Long Island and which is what I'm accustomed to. So not that I'm going to be, putting my pinky up when I drink tea or coffee or anything like that, but I'd rather speak a little bit more intelligently and have fun at the same time because that's what this show is about. It's, it's us sitting down, Starbucks or in the locker room and yucking it up and letting people know what we got going on. So we always have one funny question. So tell us something funny that happened, the funniest moment in your playing career.
Oh, man, I had the funniest moment in my career. Man, there were a lot of them. There was I'm trying to think of one that I could talk to you about.
Yeah. That's I was always going to say, we don't have to tell. This is not a tell-all, and it has to be G-rated. So
yeah. Oh man, what was something funny that happened in my career? We were constantly playing pranks on one another. So let me think of something that was. Well, okay, I'll give you one. So there was. This was like it was a series of events. So when I was a rookie, I knew that we had to dress up for games, right? And so I knew that we had to get a suit. So I went and bought like this terrible suit that didn't really fit me right. And we had our first game. And on Saturdays, we'd have a walkthrough. We'd get dressed in the locker room and go to the plane and go catch the plane. And I remember there would be a bunch of veterans. It'd be like Eric Barton, Victor Hobson, there'd just be a bunch of guys in the corner, Lavernius Coles, all these guys sitting in the corner, and they would be dressed up, and they would literally judge everyone as they walked by. and just clown them for their suits. And I remember they told one guy he looked like he worked at Benihana, and they would just make fun of everyone for their suit. And I remember the first time just getting completely roasted, and I was so embarrassed at my suit. I said, you know what, I'm never going to get embarrassed again. And it was just something that was cool. It just became a tradition for guys to roast each other about their suits. Now that was something that I really enjoyed about playing in the NFL. I wish I could give you a better story, like one scenario.
You know what? I've seen that, so I personally can relate to that because I've met being around locker rooms my whole life. You saw guys that had the shoes that were $1,000, and you had guys that had the penny.
Yep.
I mean, it was always the flavor of the week, or if somebody saw something on TV and I had to run out and get it. And and I told a story that I had Marvin Washington on the show, and I told a story about how I had ordered some suits from Joey Went, who Joey.
Man, it's funny. I just spoke to Joey.
So anyway, so I ordered a bunch of suits, and this is probably my second or third year in the league in my business. And Marvin Washington said to me, "You got to step your game up, man. Because listen, those clothes you're wearing are shot." And I'm like, "Well, Marvin, this is what I got. It fits. It's whatever." So Marvin went and bought me 5 full outfits.
That's the homie right there.
Yeah, and I was like, "What?" Because here I was telling Joey, "Hey, Joey, I'll pay you once a month, and we'll knock this out." And he came and he said to me, he goes, "You don't owe me a thing." And I was like, "Really? Why?" And then Marvin was the one who supplied me with 5 outfits to at least look more presentable. And, if you're going to hang around with these guys, the way he put it, you got to start dressing like they do. I'm like, "You guys only get dressed once a week. What does that mean? I got to start dressing." Yeah, but, and believe me, I was grateful and very appreciative because that was one of the things that he did for me. He's been a great friend all this time, and a guy I could never say anything bad about. Pro's pro, and Ronnie Lott said the same thing about Ronnie was on the show as well, and we talk about how relationships, how I kind of lamented that relationship because Ronnie was a mentor to me, and I was tight with Ronnie, and I was tight with Marvin. So it was putting them together, as well as Mo Lewis, because, Mo was a different bird, and we brought him in, and, it became like a family. Then I learned the hardest thing about football was when guys are gone, when you get cut or released or traded. That hit me so hard, I didn't know how to deal with it because I was so used to seeing somebody for 7-8 years, and then they're gone, to another team, or they're just done playing, and you're you seem lost. And I felt lost for about a week or so. Then Marvin got picked up by the Broncos and then won a Super Bowl with Elway.
Nice.
So I was happy for him because that turned out that way, but it was the Jets were in the AFC Championship game against the Broncos, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I guess I may see a Jets Super Bowl." And they didn't win, but they're torn. But it's funny how things turn out and where we start and where we finish.
Yeah, I agree. And, that's one thing, people ask me, do you have a lot of friends from when you played in the NFL? And yes, there are a lot of guys that I still, maintain contact with, and we still talk. But it was really hard, to stay attached with someone because, you could play a game on Sunday, come in Monday, watch film, Tuesday's your day off, come in Wednesday, and the person's gone. They got shipped off, they got released. And so that really made it, more realistic that it was a real business. So those relationships that you gain, man, you gotta hold on to them.
Yeah, they're important. And I tell the story about, I spoke to a class today, Northport High School, a sports marketing class. So they were talking about this and that, and I was really doing a lot of the talking. And I said that one of the things that them as young students have to realize is that a person that you meet when they're younger may be the guy that ends up being a president of a team, ends up being, and the best example of that is Billy Hampton, bless his soul, he's up there. He's the guy that brought me into the Jets, and he was an assistant equipment manager, and then left there to the NFL, and then became vice president of the Cleveland Browns. He brought Cleveland back to Cleveland when they had gone and came back. He was part of that with Carmen Policy. Mike Newsom, ball boy at the Jets. All of a sudden, Mike's working for Billy Hampton. All of a sudden, Mike Newsom becomes my roommate. Mike and I lived together for 7 years, and I cultivated so many relationships because of him. That's why I'm always grateful because of him. He got my career really moving and jumping because everyone knew who I was. And, obviously in the beginning, I was just Newsom's boy and roommate and whatnot. But then people started to learn. And then Mike also learned what I was doing. So it was very, very helpful. And then now Mike is a big shot at Nike, with marketing and, players and all that. So there's other guys that started as equipment guys and ball boys and, guys are running Anheuser-Busch and liquor companies and all these other things that I was stressing that relationships are important and don't be afraid to let people know who you are and what you do. You got to be proud of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. And networking and treating everybody with respect because you never know. You know what I mean? I'm a big guy in respect. It doesn't matter if you're, the janitor, the CEO. One day that janitor can become the CEO. And so yeah, the relationships. Continuing to grow those are paramount. That's a very important part of life, man. And just having that respect for one another.
It's funny. Someone asked me yesterday how I'm able to keep all these relationships intact and names in place. And you know what? I don't know. I just know that I can remember people. I don't remember everybody, but I remember people. And if you do what you say you're going to do and you keep your word and you keep a commitment to those people, they're always going to be there for you through the good and through the bad.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, man. It's your word is your bond. And that's one thing I respect a lot about you. Everything that you've ever done, everything you said you've done, you've come through with it, and you've always been a good friend, man. So I appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you. But and you know what? I consider you family because you know what? We've done so much together. It's like, I'm bringing the Big Daddy Golf Classic back again this June, so
yeah.
That'll be fun. And the same cast of characters. We'll add a different few names to it, and raise a lot of money and do all those good things that we enjoy doing to give back. Because it's not all about taking and receiving. It's also people, and I'm not going to put myself in the same category as you, but you're at a different plateau where people look at all your movement, all you got going on. You still have a lot of Jet fans that, hey, Erik Coleman, I got a picture with him, or I got autograph, whatever the case may be. People still stay in tune with what you got going on. So it's always good when people see that you're just not a taker, but you're also a giver.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, the fact that I do have, that they always say you have that platform. I have that platform of being an NFL player, being a Jet, use that for something good. Use it to raise awareness for a cause that, other people may not know about. Use it to help somebody else and that's in a lesser situation than you. I think that's very important, to give back. We've all been blessed, to be here today, to accomplish the goals that we've, to reach the levels that we've reached. It's really a blessing. And so I think it's our responsibility to pay it forward, help some other people, and help make this world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. And so let me ask you this. This will be the last question that I ask. It'll be twofold. What would you say is your greatest strength and your greatest weakness?
I would say my greatest strength is that I'm a good-hearted person. I genuinely care for people and what happens to them. With that being said, if I know you, you know what I mean. If we have a relationship, I care for you, then I'm going to do whatever I can for you. And that can be a weakness as well because, people can take advantage of it. But, I think that my biggest weakness would probably be I'm hard-headed. I'm very hard-headed. My mom been telling me that since I was a kid. I gotta, she's always told me a hard head makes a soft butt. And and I've always been hard-headed. I can kind of set my mind for something, and that can work to my benefit as well sometimes, where if I set my mind towards something, it's going to be hard to get me off that goal. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to make it to the NFL, out of Spokane, being, a kid that's, 5'10", 5'11", 200 pounds. I'm not the fastest guy. I'm not the biggest guy, but I'm hard-headed. I work hard, and, that can be a bad thing sometimes as well.
I've been told the same. I know that hard-headed, what do you call it, demeanor or attitude. I have it at times myself. And, someone said to me, boy, when you make up your mind, you make up your mind. And I'm like, well, I don't know any other way. What am I going to do? Go half-ass? Or, if you're going to make it right, you got to make it right. You just don't, you don't sit in the middle. So you got to make it right.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a funny part of the show. Now I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and I'm going to I ask all the guests to ask me a question, ask me something that you think you don't know, or totally up to you. I leave it in you got the mic.
Okay, I got the mic to ask Rich Big Daddy Salgado a question. I don't know if it's going to be funny because I respect what you do, as a businessman. I just really, as a young entrepreneur, as a young businessman, what is your key to networking? Because, everyone knows that you have a lot of great relationships. You meet people. You seem like you know everyone, and especially in the sports world. What is your key to networking with others?
I think it's been that I've been everywhere you need to be. You know what I mean? Like you'll find me in Atlanta at a game. You'll find me in LA at a game. You'll find me at the Combine. You'll find me at the Super Bowl. I'm at the Pro Bowl. Obviously, all that changes this year, except for the Super Bowl. Now, we all know that if Buffalo gets into the Super Bowl, I will be there because, I got to support my baby brother. But, that's really been the key. It's been, again, being everywhere and letting people know what I do. And also, it's doing what I say. This because you've been there with me, as you can see over my shoulder. And I actually happen to have, a little Arizona Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer. You have those relationships that you can call on people that'll help you. When we both have our camps, we wanted water, we got water, Arizona iced tea, big company in Long Island. And it relates to all these different things because when you have relationships with people like that, you have a relationship with restaurant and food vendors. One of the things that I'll share with you, and it's kind of funny, I haven't really put it out there too publicly yet. I am coming out with my own bacon line. It's going to be called Big Daddy's Grilling Bacon, and it's going to be the appetizer size bacon, 3 strips in a pack, like you get at Luger's and, whatever. And how that came about was the relationship between the CEO of Arizona and the relationship of the CEO at AVA Meat Company. The two of them got together and decided to take my big ugly mug and put it on a package and call it Big Daddy's Grilling Bacon. And I'm actually sampling samples tomorrow again.
Nice.
And then we'll figure out what the next steps are. But, that's really how I've built my business and been able to connect with people at all levels, whether it's, like you said, the janitor or the CEO or the middle guy. You got to treat all these people with respect because, again, one day that person may be somebody that is on higher ground.
Mm-hmm.
I find that I preach that to the max because I think it's very important that people have an understanding that people are people and no matter what color, race, whatever position they're in, whatever job they have, you know what? Everyone's a human being, and you have to treat people that way.
I get it.
So I think those are the keys to my success, and it leads to, like I always say, like I'm an octopus and I have all these tentacles, and then everything streams here, there, all over the place, and then there's some things that you have to walk away from because you know what, you only have so much time. If you spread yourself out too thin, then you can't really focus in on what you're good at and what pays your bills and provides and gives you the lifestyle that you want to lead. So I think all those things play a part in entrepreneurship, in relationships, in growing a business, and in meeting more people.
I appreciate that. Appreciate the knowledge.
Yeah, it comes with a lot of Delta miles and a lot of hotel stays, but you know what? I would do it all over again because it's worth it. And I'll end on this. I told the class today that I spoke to that I've been fortunate. I've survived an aneurysm. I've survived coronavirus, and I've done things that some of the wealthiest people on this planet haven't been able to do. I've been able to do. And I think all that comes with being blessed, being persistent, and also being a hard worker. So on that note, I could say my life has been great. I'm not ready to leave yet. I got a lot more to do. We have a lot more to do together as well. So, the road will be greater, richer, and funner down the road. That I can promise.
I look forward to it, man.
So,
I really do.
No, and again, to everyone out there who's watching and listening, check out my man, Erik Coleman. He's on social media. He's on TV. He's on with the Jets. Hopefully they get their act together and turn around. They got a new coach. I'm sure you're ecstatic about defensive-minded coach.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm hosting the press conference when they're naming the head coach tomorrow, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to host the press conference show, and it's gonna be fun, man. I'm excited for the future of the Jets.
Well, great. I look forward to checking that out then. And again, everyone, all the fans, all the viewers and listeners, Erik Coleman, thank you for being with us, my man. And again, tell the family hello. I miss them, and I hope to see you guys all soon. Hopefully this thing goes around and we get back to some sort of normalcy.
Yeah, we'll be up there soon, man. And it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I'd love to come on any other time you have me.
Yep, I will definitely. You're always welcome back here. And to everyone, till next time. This is Big Daddy and Big Daddy and Friends. And keep watching. Leave those comments. And if you have any questions, ask away. Leave them on there. We'll answer them. Until next time, I'll see everybody soon.